What's up, guys? It's Ornlu, and as I have been very busy with my tournament, OBNC, recently, I've fallen behind in terms of updating my tier lists. So this is my arena tier list from June 23rd. So I'm recording this on the 28th. So that's like a little over 2 months ago, and it's also on the other side of Clown Cup. So we had a big arena tournament, and I definitely have some tweaks and updates and stuff. Just in terms of how stuff has been playing out, I have also personally been playing a lot of Arena at the 1650 plus DE level, so reasonably high level. So I've definitely had a lot of experience as far as that goes, and just casting it, of course, as well. And there's definitely some updates I'd like to make. So, gonna do the Arena tier list, or rather, go through it again and see what is the same, what's different. I know King of the Desert 3 is coming up soon, and don't worry, I will also update my Arabia tier list before that tournament begins, so look forward to that as well. But this is Clown Town, so let's get right back into it, shall we? My S tier back in the day was Teutons, Aztecs, Malay, and Lithuanians. I just thought these were the strongest civs and didn't really have a ton of bad matchups. And I was sort of right in terms of how that panned out in Clown Cup. These are the civs that were most often banned. Just kidding. Britain's also jumping up there. Now, I'm pretty sure pathing was changed like just after Clown Cup or something like that, so Britain's might not be as strong anymore, but just based off of Clown Cup and the amount of times Britons were banned, people don't really want to go up against Britons. Now, I personally don't think they're quite S tier myself. I just feel like they have a little. They have too many weak matchups. And to me, an S tier Civ doesn't really have many weak matchups. So I'm kind of tempted to keep them at the top of A tier, but I can see why people really don't like playing against Britons on Arena. So I think you can make arguments for, the top of A tier or the bottom of S tier. I did that backwards, but whatever. However, this is definitely my S tier. Like, these guys are all definitely S tier. Teutons, Aztecs, and Malay have very few, if any, bad matchups. They have a ton of different ways they can be played. They're generally strong versus most openings. Teutons generally want to open scouts and then boom, and then go into the Teuton late game. However, you can go for a monk rush yourself, or anything in between. You can just go monasteries plus boom, and you don't need to open scouts. But your scouts opening, which is definitely the meta, and something I should highlight a lot, is that the meta with Clown Cup and just recently in general, is very scout heavy. So like, you open scouts and then you boom and then you go into late game. Try and get map control, try and get the relics, and then get your eco up behind it. Teutons do that beautifully. Ironically, Aztecs are a little bit different because they're much more aggressive, much more old school arena style with monk pressure and then fast Imperial Age and then Eagle Warriors and stuff. But Aztecs are Aztecs. They're great on arena. They always have been and always will be. And then Malay are still always like a little bit trickier, and although it's not, I guess, super relevant to the tier list, I think something I really want to highlight is that in recent months, the ideal opening for Malay really seems to be more on the delayed feudal age and quick castle age. Like, you go fast castle with Malay, you don't go for the quick feudal age, get your eco upgrades going, and then go on your merry way from there. It seems like opening up with like 30-31 pop uptime with Malay seems to be a bit better. But from there, you still go scouts. You can go for monks and boom or whatever, and then Malay, you just have an insane eco. So definitely, I'd put these three civs in S tier. So for A tier, I had Britons, I had Lithuanians in S tier, Slavs, Turks, Burmese, Khmer, Byzantines, Saracens, and Spanish. Right away, I don't know what I was smoking back then. Saracens aren't really A tier. I think I was overhyping the Saracen Archer bonus when it comes to Arena. I mean, they're like solid, but let's just stick them in B tier for now and then deal with them later. Britons, I know, like I said, you can make arguments for S tier. I'm gonna put them at the top of A tier. Lithuanians are gonna have right behind them. The thing with Lithuanians is that like the Latus is still incredibly strong, borderline broken. Okay, yeah, it's just overpowered, but their eco isn't that amazing. And the lack of good siege options can be a bit of an issue for the Civ. It's still really good, but it just doesn't feel as overbearing in the economic department compared to the S tier Civs, or even Britons. So I think that's why they're going to be in A tier. I'm definitely going to kick Spanish down for now. I'm definitely happy with Slavs, Turks, Burmese, Khmer, Byzantines all being in A tier. Also, Vietnamese are going to jump up. Just glancing through it real quick. Oh, and Cumans as well, for sure. So, as far as the ordering goes, I mean, I definitely think Britons and Lithuanians are kind of towards the top. I think Cumans are going to be up there as well, but honestly, I think with the rest of these A tier civs, it like I guess in general, like the ordering doesn't really matter a whole lot, to me at least. Like these civs are all super good. So Slavs, I mean, still like if you have a scout meta, Slavs are going to be great. You just go scouts and then you boom, and then you go into Slav late game. They still have their problems though. They do struggle a little bit versus good monk civs due to their units just being really expensive. So their siege units are expensive, their boyars are expensive if you're going for that sort of thing. And they just don't have the greatest ranged options to actually catch up to good monk civs, good bombard cannon civs, and really those are the big ones. Maybe archer civs a little bit, but then once they get their siege online, then they're fine. The other thing I want to point out is one, scouts opening is, it's the whole big deal right now in terms of meta, but the big breakout unit to me was the bombard cannon in Clown Cup and just recently in playing on ladder. Bombard cannons are really good, and I think people are finally appreciating just how good they are because they can snipe onagers, they can snipe trebuchets, they can snipe a lot of ranged units. And if you can sort of keep them safe and keep them in the back, they can just be really, really hard to deal with. And there were so many instances of like just the player with good bombard cannons just killing all like onagers and rams and whatnot, and then riding that to victory. And Slavs don't have bombard cannons and are additionally vulnerable to them. So I think that's definitely like the one thing that's hindering them from otherwise being probably S tier. But like Teutons and Malay both have bombard cannons. Teuton ones even have extra armor. And then Aztecs don't care because they're Aztecs. Cumans, definitely bumping them up to A tier. I mean, I put them in B tier last time just because I didn't really know what to do with them. Just because I hadn't seen enough Cuman games with Arena just to know how good they are. They're really, really good. The fact that you just go for a 2TC boom is just... It's just forces your opponent to play around you instantly. They need to put some kind of pressure on, otherwise they're just going to get wrecked economically. Like their boom is just insane. And then you can open scouts behind it, get up to Castle Age, and then Kipchoks are amazing for taking map control. They're great for snowballing a game. And then Steppe Husbandry Hussars are great as well in terms of just spamming a bunch of units to close out the game. They're still vulnerable to early castle drop aggression, particularly from our other good friends here, Turks and Burmese, who both love going for fast castle into unique unit. They're still definitely vulnerable to that. And I think if you're going fast castle as Cumans, you're just kind of not thriving. You don't have a very good tech tree compared to most of these other civs. And then you don't have an eco bonus at that point. So what do you have going for you then? Not much. It's still really weird. Like the civ is so polarizing in terms of it can just blow you out of the water or it can just feel like a potato. And then in late game, Kipchoks kind of fall off a lot. Like they peak way faster than Mangudai, but they're just not as good as Mangudai when it comes to late game. They just don't have the damage, and they just die horribly to onagers. So Turks, definitely just, it's good for the same reasons I talked about in the previous video. Fast Castle into Janissaries. You can also open Light Cav and win most Scout Wars, and then boom from there, and then you have an amazing late game options, and also really good Bombard Cannons. Hello! But yeah, lots of great ranged options. And the gold issue isn't usually a problem on Arena. Come to think of it, Turks being good on Arena and not on Arabia is a great example of why missing Elite Skirmisher, and to a lesser extent Pikeman and Halberdier, is a lot more of a problem in early Castle Age than it is in post-Imperial Age. Well, I mean, like, it's a big problem both in Castle Age and Imperial Age, but in terms of, like, the amount of games it impacts... the fact that you just struggle so much against archer openings on Arabia isn't really as big of a deal on Arena, and you can just open Janissaries and be pretty comfortable most of the time. Whereas, yes, if you're in a situation where you're up against, like, say, Britons, and you don't have the ability to get to, like, heavy cav archers and rams, then yeah, you're going to be pretty sad. Other than that, like, you don't really worry about early Castle Age, and only against like really good archer civs do Turks struggle, otherwise they just smash you in the face with gunpowder. Burmese, double Castle Arambai. It's the hot meme in town. It's like a cheese strat. It's really all in, but you go for two castles and you go for a Rambai, like double castle a Rambai production, which you can afford because it doesn't cost any food. And then it turns out a Rambai just kill everything if you get enough of them. So yeah. However, it is certainly not impossible to beat. If you have a bunch of skirmishers, that can work. Some monk conversions early on can be very effective. I know I've personally won games against double castle Arambai just by converting some of the earlier Arambai and preventing that snowball from happening. And then if it doesn't like work instantly, you're dead in the water. However, Burmese don't actually need to go for that. You can just go for single castle Arambai and boom behind it and just do that. That's totally fine. You can open scouts or just monks and booming or whatever. It's still a really great civ. Still has definite vulnerabilities to strong archer civs, like Turks, but is still a great civ in its own right. Khmer really wish they still had bombard cannons. If this civ had bombard cannons, it would probably be back up in S tier, but no. You have arbalest openings, which are pretty much all you can do with Khmer. And then you can get into like mass scorpions, which can be really strong against some civs, but not all of them. But still, Khmer eco is insane. You can go for scouts opening, and that'd be totally fine. I think I'd put them at the bottom of A tier, but they're still like their eco is still insane. You can still go for fast inf arbalest and go for siege rams, no problem. And then you have your elephants as well to help you out in late game as well. So it's definitely not a bad civ. It's still really good and probably still an A tier, but I could see it being like the top of B tier. Byzantines, nothing really new on them. They're just good. Fast Imp can be really strong. Great monks. They have bombard cannon, cheap trash. The Cataphract has been recently buffed. That's really sick, and can definitely impact a lot of arena games. Yeah, they're Byzantines, man. They're good at the things they've always been good at. They're still a little bit weak in terms of the eco department, so they're not quite S tier. They're still great. Like you could just only go Byzantines and like barely ever have any bad matchups or like situations where you'll be like really struggling right off the bat. Like they're just good. Vietnamese S tier. No, I don't think they're S tier. So some players, like notably the Viper, are really touting Vietnamese as like the best arena civilization. And they're good. Like they're good. Definitely better than where I put them. I think I put them at the top of B tier. Like I might even put them somewhere around here. Sure, let's put them right there. They're pretty high up there in A tier. In my opinion, they have a similar game plan to Britons, right? They're both archer civs. Duh. But whereas Britons are going to outrange you, I kind of like the Briton eco a little bit more than Vietnamese eco, although the Vietnamese eco is very good. Vietnamese have bombard cannons, whereas Britons do not. Both civs lack siege ram. Vietnamese also have powerful cavalry options. They also have the imp skirmisher, but they have elephants, they have bloodlines, all that good stuff. They're not quite as good out of the gate in mid game, but with Britons you can go one range crossbowman, get your extra range, faster work rate, and then the cheap TCs really help you in terms of wood savings. You can really take map control. Vietnamese don't really have that as well. Like, you can do it, but it's not quite as good. Fast Castle Rattan Archer is okay, not amazing. And I still feel like it's still a little too passive for my taste to be S tier, but still a very, very strong A tier civ. And yeah, that pretty much rounds out my A tier, I think. I don't think I'm bumping anyone else up or anything like that. Maybe Khmer could be in B tier, but I still think they're still good. But yeah, these are all civilizations that have some small weaknesses, some bad matchups, and I think the big difference between the S tier civs and the A tier civs is just the matchup spread. You can go with S tier civs, you can go like any opening against anything and be fine. Obviously, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not too much of one. Whereas it requires a little bit more proper planning when it comes to the A tier civs. B tier. Chinese, Mayans, Mongols, Franks, Vikings, Celts, Bulgarians, Persians, and then I bumped down Saracens and Spanish. And just looking at it, I think I want to bump Ethiopians up. I kind of want to bump Vikings down, and I want to bump Koreans up. Kind of want to bump Bulgarians down as well. And it's otherwise looking more or less pretty good. Let's see. So Chinese, I've seen them here and there, both in Clown Cup and in my own games and just random games I've casted. Not really too much different about them. They have a very strong late game. They have a strong boom. They, you go scouts, you can just go straight monks, and all of that's going to be fine. Your eco is very powerful, of course, with your extra villagers. You're really weak to siege onagers now, and not having Bombard Cannon or a great answer to it is just a big problem with the Civ, and it's just too much of a weakness to really put them into A tier, but otherwise they're still a fantastic Civ. Mayans. What is there to say about Mayans? Everybody loves Mayans in terms of, well, not everybody, but people just love playing Mayans. And I still probably am rating them a bit higher than they should, and I might end up bumping them down a little bit, but again, nothing really is all that different with them. Good eco, plumed archers are good, Eagle Warriors with Eldorado are good, and Siege Rams are good, Halberdiers are good, but that's like all they have. And in a meta where going like Fast Castle into Plumed Archers is a little bit riskier, just because other civilizations can take map control faster, and then you don't have an amazing eco behind it. So it's just a little bit more awkward, but I mean, Mayans are still, they can still snowball games easily. Mongols, I have seen more recently a new strategy. I've seen players like Viper and Nikov go for it, where they will go very fast feudal age, like 19 pop or something like that, and then get the eco upgrades, and then kind of do a Malay style where you just get your eco upgrades quickly and then just boom in feudal age, and then go into castle age and then do your whatever thing from there. You can also open scouts, and then if you tech into light cav, it's a little bit more of a commitment, but with Mongols you get a pretty big payoff with it, and that's fine. However, your eco is still pretty bad no matter what, and although Mangudai are insane once you get to them, it's really hard to get to them. And if your like castles are sniped or your stone is bad, and it can be a little bit tricky. So yeah, Mongols, very noticeable weaknesses, but they still have very powerful options. And that's just the B tier civs in general. Very noticeable weaknesses. It's a little too easy to exploit, or it's a little too present of a weakness or insurmountable weakness to really put them into A tier. Like the A tier civs can generally work around their weaknesses a lot better than the B tier civs, which can just kind of feel dead in the water at times, but are other times really, really good. I think that's just in general the big differentiating point. Franks, again, Franks, you go scouts pretty much every time, you get relics, and then you go into late game with Franks and do your Frank things, frankly. I don't think I need to talk a lot about them. You're still very weak to ranged options, at least early on. Until Paladin itself comes in, and then you're just kind of a little bit of a one-dimensional civ. But I mean, you still have very strong options, and it's just such a fluid civ. It's just so, I don't want to say easy to play, but your decision making is just so streamlined with them that they're still gonna do work for you in the right hands. Celts you see occasionally. The problem with Celts is and always will be the fact that their late Castle Age and early Imperial Age is really bad. I mean, you can go scouts, but I mean, your scouts aren't anything, like going for scouts doesn't feel amazing. Even then you follow up with cavalry and then it's like, don't really want to open archers. You kind of don't really want to go for anything except like siege units and maybe monks until you get your late game woads or halberdiers and siege going. And that can be a little too slow or not maybe the comp you want or need at that specific moment. And in those points, Celts feel very sad. But in many other situations, Celts will just do that, and then they feel great as they just smash you in the face. So again, very noticeable weakness, but also very noticeable strength. Persians. Similar-ish to Franks in that they're both, big cavalry civs and whatnot. War elephants do see play on arena from time to time. You also have Kemendarin, so trash bows, which makes your trash game a lot better than Franks. You also have fully upgraded hussars, whereas Franks do not. So that's all very nice for you. But your early game still isn't quite as good. Persian's very sad they lost that 5% in Dark Age. But still, you have an amazing boom. Your monks are really bad, which is not great. And you're a little bit predictable when going for heavy cavalry. You don't have Bracer, and that's definitely not great, but you do have bombard cannons and siege rams. So again, definitely lots of strong options, but they all kind of lend themselves towards cavalry as like your big power gold unit. And yeah, that's not always what you want, and in fact is oftentimes not. Simply because halberdiers are very, very easy to switch into, especially compared to something like paladins. Now you have Saracens, which I bumped down from A tier alongside Spanish, and then Ethiopians and Koreans, which I bumped up from C tier, as we converge in the middle. So Saracens, I talked about them briefly. I just kind of overrated their archer bonus a little bit, market abuse bonus a little bit. They're still good. They still have very powerful options. Mamelukes can be useful. They have fully upgraded cav archers. They have good monks. Good siege, all that stuff, but your eco is still a little bit lacking for my taste. and no halberdier also is not fantastic. Sometimes you don't want camels, or can't afford camels, and yeah, then you're not super happy, but Saracens are still fine. Spanish, Conquistadors are good. Vast Castle Conks is good. Aramba, I feel a little bit better in terms of what you're getting out of the unit. And Burmese also have a better eco. But Spanish still can make... Conquistadors will still kill you, don't get me wrong. But you also have good monks and good pretty much everything except the archer line with Spanish. They're still fine. I just don't think they're quite A tier. I think they... Spanish, like, they don't have the big power play. At least not compared to what they were used to be able to do with Conquistadors. It just doesn't feel quite as strong. And your eco is just not quite there. Ethiopians, I bumped up from C tier. Some people really like Ethiopians on Arena. You don't need to mine gold. You can just, you start with 100 gold, you don't get Loom on Arena early, unless something is going very wrong. But so you can just click up to Castle Age, and then you can get a good Castle Age time, go for crossbow and take map control, that whole thing. And you do have a very strong late game with Arbalests and Siege Onagers and stuff like that. So I think they do make it into B tier, and we definitely saw Ethiopians win games in Clown Cup. And some people really like them. I do like Ethiopians a lot on Arabia, not as big a fan on Arena, but I still think they belong in B tier, if not towards the bottom. Similar deal with Koreans, they also got their wood discount bonus extended even further. Going to help a lot in terms of skirmishers and halberdiers. In fact, exclusively those things, because the war wagon cost is around the same. And then you don't have ships on Arena, so... Or Cav Archers. I just realized Cav Archers too. My bad. But yeah, Koreans, like, you have to play them differently. Go for mid-game tower pushing can be really strong with this Civ. Your late game is insane. Your eco is not great. It's a slow, turtley Civ, but I think that the power level with the wood discount now is high enough that they can be bumped into B tier, honestly. Just because that late game is insane, and you have some great aggressive options as well in mid-game with your towers. But still, you're just a slow Civ. And you're more fragile than, say, Teutons, who are also a slow Civ. But Teutons also have an insane eco, right? Koreans don't. So as far as the ordering of these civs goes, definitely going to put Saracens and Spanish towards the top. Franks maybe a little bit over Mongols. Persians are they're around as good as Franks. Nah, that looks more or less fine to me. Like I said, the specific ordering doesn't really matter as much when it comes to like within the tier. Just like generally, I'd say these are more towards the bottom of B tier, and these are generally towards the higher end. C tier. So my old C tier was discounting Ethiopians and Koreans. It was Japanese, Incas, Portuguese, Italians, Magyars, Goths, Malians, and then I just bumped down Vikings and Bulgarians. So Japanese, they have a very strong aggressive play. You can go for pretty quick Castle Age and Monks, and that's all very good. Katapuruto tribes are good. Their halbs are good. Yasama towers are good, but you're still missing that. One, you're missing the big eco, and then two, you're missing a really powerful like core unit to your late game army, like a good core gold unit. No bombard cannon, not amazing cavalry, and it's like you're just missing that core power option. And in general, I would say that the C tier civs compared to the B tier civs, they either lack the super powerful options or they just really are lacking in the eco. And then like even if they get their eco going, like these other civs tend to do better anyway. Incas have a lot of really powerful counter options, and you do have Eagles, which are great, but they don't really have the best eco ever, and it just feels like you're better off with Mayans and Aztecs most of the time. Kamjaks are going to do great against cavalry, but you don't see cavalry all that often. And again, they just feel a little bit generic when it comes to just their power units, and you don't really have that core power unit again. But still, like they're very flexible in terms of what they can do. But a Civ like Byzantines is also flexible, but Byzantines also have the very relevant cheap Imperial Age, and they also have the power unit in Cataphracts, and they also have gunpowder. Just like as an example of like why Byzantines are way up here and Incas are down here. Portuguese. Fast M Feitoria is something that I just haven't seen a lot of, and I hear good things about it, but I just don't see it often. I want to see more of it. I want to see how good it is. But I have not been brave enough to try it a bunch. I've only seen it like a couple times. But other than that, Portuguese, organ guns just feel weird. I have no idea what happened with them. I don't think they were like intentionally nerfed in any way. They just feel meh. compared to Vubli. But you do have cheaper monks, you have good monks, and then you have a broad tech tree, and Vatorias do give you some sort of inevitability, but you just feel kind of meh. Your eco is just nothing special, right? And your military isn't all that special either. Italians face a similar problem. Genoese crossbowmen can be good, but cavalry isn't as prevalent on Arena. You miss halberdier, you miss an amazing eco bonus, you just have a decent tech tree, right? It's just kind of generic. Like, you have options, but it's just, they're not that powerful. Magyars, it's kind of weird because they do have very powerful late game options, and their cav archers, Magyar hussars are all super good, maybe paladins, maybe arbalests. But your siege is bad, like really bad, and your monks are not great. You don't have gunpowder, and you don't have any real eco bonus. So, not really the sort of civ that thrives on Arena. Like, they're all right, but they definitely have their weaknesses. Goths, free loom doesn't really matter much on Arena, feels bad, man. But like, what is there to say about Goths that hasn't been said 1,000 times over? They're good at the same things they've always been good at in terms of just flooding with infantry, but they don't really have a great eco to get there, and their tech tree is otherwise pretty crappy. So they have some great matchups. They still have great matchups against, say, like Britons and Mayans and whatnot. But they have a ton of awful matchups. And it's just like way too polarizing of a civ to ever feel comfortable going against or playing as. Malians, kind of the opposite. Like, their eco's great. They have a very broad tech tree, but they just lack the power options. Kind of like Japanese in that way, maybe Incas as well. They just lack a super strong, inherently powerful unit. And that's really all that's holding them back, but it's a pretty big thing to be holding you back, so definitely C tier civ. And then the two latest additions that I dropped down from B tier, Vikings and Bulgarians. Vikings I've just been continuously underwhelmed with on Arena. Like, normally I consider Vikings and Ethiopians to be pretty similar civs in terms of, like, how good they are and their strengths and whatnot. But I feel like the late game oriented Ethiopian army is just better than the Viking army. And, like, yeah, the Viking eco is super good, but, like, into what? Arbalests. Like, almost exclusively. And if you're, like, a civ that has good skirmishers, like, if you're Lithuanians or Vietnamese or Byzantines or anything like that, if Vikings are up against bombard cannon civs, like, I have several games that I can remember distinctly of Vikings just, like, trying to go for onagers and then just dying to bombard cannons because Arb and onager just dies to bombard cannon. I guess they're a little bit, like, out of the meta, I would say, in terms of, like, their weaknesses can be very exploited. But your eco is still insane, and Vikings, kind of like Franks, have a very, very streamlined game plan, and if you can execute it well, you can always do work with Vikings. Bulgarians, a civ I bumped down, like, their late game army is insane, but it's also dies to bombard cannons. Are you guys seeing a theme here? You don't have bombard cannons, and your ranged options aren't amazing. I mean, you do have siege onager, okay, heavy cav archers, but, like, you want to be going for, like, konniks and hussars, and then halberdiers and whatnot, baggins, two-handed swordsmen, and just good ranged options, especially, you know, like a bunch of janissaries, arambai, longbowmen, whatever, will just kind of melt you. So in terms of, like, positioning, Vikings are gonna be up there, Bulgarians kind of similar, maybe Bulgarians even above Vikings. Maybe Magyars above Italians and Portuguese, and then Goths and Malians. I mean, again, the specific in tier ranking doesn't really matter as much. It's just generally, I think these civs are more towards the top and these are more towards the bottom. And finally, we have our D tier. This video's already gone on way longer than I thought it would, but such is life. This I don't really think needs to change much. I barely ever see these civs played, and when I do, they almost always lose. These are civs that are just not well suited to Arena. You can notice that they're all cavalry-centric. They tend to have not that great siege. Two of them actually do have bombard cannon. They also kind of both die to halberdier play. Like, good halberdiers, good bombard cannons, good monks, good ranged options. So yeah, these civs, I don't think I need to talk about them much. They're just not Arena powerhouse civs, and then that's okay. Not every civ is suited to every map, and these are all civilizations that have plenty of situations where they do shine. So yeah, guys, this is going to be my updated Arena tier list for the end of August 2020. I think there's a lot of insight that I know I personally have gained in the last couple months when it comes to Arena, and the meta has definitely evolved. And it's been a lot of fun to see it play out, and I think that it's certainly worth doing this sort of update video. So definitely do leave a like if you enjoyed, guys. And like I said, I will be doing revisiting my Arabia tier list soon because King of the Desert's coming up. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.